Welcome to TruthStream. Today we are here with Richard Smith and Maria Scavelli, and we're going to be talking about the TranzactCard and the benefits. And we're going to make this fun and enjoyable. We did a show not too long ago with Dr. Scott Young, and we try to have a few laughs when we're talking finance as well. So, without further ado, let's welcome to the show, and we will start with Richard. Please, thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's good to be here. I can't wait to talk and answer any questions you guys might have about the TranzactCard. It's been a lifetime in coming for me. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, and I just really wanted to do something to change the world. And my wife and I, when we were first married, we've been married for a little over 35 years. She turned to me and said, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I look, "What do you mean?" And she's like, what's your slice of the American pie? Opportunity pie. And I thought about it for a second. I said, you know what I want to do? I want to make the pie bigger. Because my thing is when people are fighting over how big their slice is, it's not a fun world to live in. If you continue to make the pie bigger, it doesn't matter how small your slice is. If the pie itself is enormous, I'm going to get as much pie as I could possibly eat. So my whole philosophy has been, man, let me figure out a way to make the world a better place by making the pie bigger, the opportunity for people to make some money.
Well, that's a great place to start. Yeah, we were introduced to this through Maria and a few other folks, and finally decided to plunge in because we started hearing about these benefits, and it's affiliated with a white hat operation, and it was like, wait a second, what's going on here? So tell us a little bit about how this came to be, and then we can get into the benefits of it. But it sounds like part of either NASARA or some kind of betterment of the people. I don't know. What do you call it?
Yeah, let's just talk about white hats. There are good people and bad people in every aspect of the world. And I'm not talking about politics. I'm just talking about good and bad. And there are some white hats out here in the banking industry that actually want to do something significantly different for the natural person. What do I mean by that? I'm talking about a living, breathing, brush your teeth, heart beating person and their family. Most banking institutions, their actual clients, the ones they want to lend money to, are either governments or Fortune 500 companies. And they use a lot of us as fodder or depositories so that they can lend out to the real customers, which is government and Fortune 500 companies. And when I say governments, I don't just mean countries. I mean countries, states, and local principalities. That's who they really want to borrow money to. And we wanted to create a banking model that took care of the natural person and gave them a little bit more buying power. And that's the Banking Association termed us something different. The evolution of banking's happened over the last since the 1700s here in the Americas. And I remember driving up to the drive-up window with my mom, and then a couple of times getting dropped off to my great-grandmother. And she actually worked at a tea room, and my mom would make arrangements to drop me off, and I'd ride with my grandmother to her home. But on the way there from the tea room to her home, she'd always go to the bank, and she'd drive up to the bank and leave the car running. Now, this was 100 zillion years ago. I'm 55 years old, and I was a young child. She'd leave the car running and run into the bank and come back out. The third time I got just exacerbated because it really upset me being left in the car with it running. I didn't know quite what to do. And I remember telling my great-grandmother, why don't you just drive up to the drive-up window like my mom does? And she turns to me and goes, Ricky Smith, I will never do my banking through a window. I'm going to meet my bank face to face. Well, that was her paradigm. There was no way in hell she was going to hand her tip money from the tea room through a window to the bank. She wanted to meet her bank face to face. how that's not face to face, I don't know, but I've started seeing the evolution of banking from way back then. Well, now the kids today, they don't even want to see a bank. They want to do it on their phone, or it's not a real banking institution. That's why Venmo caught fire. That's why a whole bunch of other banks. That's why Capital One tried to turn their banks into coffee shops, failed miserably, absolutely miserably. It was $1 billion flop.
Oh, wow.
Kids don't want to go into the banks anymore. So the evolution of banking's got all the way to neobanking. That's Chime, Acorn, SoFi, Ally Bank. All those banking institutions don't have any bricks and mortar, and the kids seem to gravitate to them. And they have some little rinky-dink cool thing about them, other than the fact that they're on their phone. And we're just something much, much different. We are a non-bricks and mortar, but we're a financial momentum. We're a FINMO bank, and that's the next evolution. And the way we're a FINMO bank is we actually give a dollar for dollar valuation with a debit card, not a credit card. So a point system, much like the credit cards use. So there's point systems, there's cash back, and there's hotel points, and there's frequent flyers, and they've all got some type of everything. Well, they're all a little bit smoke and mirrors. And when we put Transact together, we wanted to do something much, much different. And that was, let's do something with a reward system that you don't need a quantum computer to figure it out. It's just a dollar for dollar valuation with a card that's a debit card that's fully FDIC insured and fully secure. And let's allow people to get a better valuation than they currently have with any other card in their wallet.
Wow. Do you have anything right away? Or?
No, I just want to hear more about how you can manage to do that for folks. It's something that's not too good to be true.
Well, it's really interesting. I'm not the banker, so there's two of us that founded the company. It's Peter Ramsey and myself. My name's Richard Smith, and he's the banking expert. He says he's got a deep South accent. He's got an Australian accent, and he made his fortune down in Australia marketing for banks. Came stateside for a bunch of different reasons, but he wanted to kind of shake up things in the banking industry here in the United States. So he got dual citizenship. He's got a lovely spread down in Australia, and wanted to do some major things here. And he's been working on the banking side of things for a little over 10 years here in the United States. And the two of us became acquainted with each other, and I kind of gravitated to him because I always knew there was some secret things that happened in the banks that I didn't have access to. Doesn't matter how big you can write a check. There's some things you just can't do unless you're a banker. If you're not a banker and can't talk the banker language, forget about getting inside behind the hidden curtain. One of those things are interchange fees. So whenever you use a card, whenever you use a Visa card, MasterCard, an American Express, or a Discover card, there's interchange fees. Those are fees paid by the merchants. And I knew, because of some of my background and some of my learning, that there was interchange fees, and the lion's share of those interchange fees came back to the card issuer. And I wanted to get my hands on that, and I never was able to for over 35 years until I met Peter Ramsey. And he grabbed onto that, and we started working together, and we created a banking platform called TranzactCard. And it's a fully FDIC insured banking platform because of the banks that we work with. And we'll get into that in a minute. And his problem was, how do we create something that will make people want to use this card versus any other card? Well, that's where I come along.
All right.
I'm old time in e-commerce, especially wholesale distribution and manufacturer distribution. And gentlemen, if it's all right with you, I'll just kind of tell you a little bit of my background, if that's all right.
It would be great. Yeah, it would help everybody. Please go ahead. So I'm 55 right now, and I don't know why I keep telling you my name, not my name, but my age, but I'm 55 right now. And I sold my business that I'm about to tell you about when I was 23 years old. So it's been a long time coming.
But I'm the guy that put together the color change T-shirt industry, the shirts that change color with temperature. The most famous product is the Coors can on Coors Light. When the beer's cold enough, the Rocky Mountains turn blue.
Yeah.
Same technology.
Okay.
I sold the company when I was 23 years old, and they're still going strong. They do about a little over $100 million in sales, and Coors is one of their biggest accounts. At that point, at the time, I kind of started golfing for about a year. There's not a lot of 23-year-olders on the golf course, got bored to death. One of my importers, because at the time when I started the industry, it was all T-shirts and sweatshirts. I bought products domestically from Hanes and Fruit of the Loom, and then I had my import section. The imports were cheaper and normally, most times, a better quality garment, especially with all cotton. Anyway, when I sold the company, the guys that bought it just went with domestics, and they didn't do anything with the imports. And so one of my importers came up to me and said, he actually came to my house. This is early 90s. I said, dude, I'd like to do business with you. I'm like, not in the T-shirt industry anymore. And he said, no, you don't get it. I can bring just about anything from the Far East into the United States. I said, like what? He said, well, I don't care. Go pick something out at a store. So I went to Nordstrom's. It was the tail end. I live up here in Utah. It was the tail end of the ski season. So the coats, the Columbia jackets were marked down from full retail. I bought it for like $150 and it was marked down 20%. It was a nice big ski parka. I held it up to him and said, what can you get this coat for? He looked at it like he knew what he was doing and looked at the zipper and he goes, I guarantee I can get this coat landed in LA for under $25. And I'm like, bull crap. I just barely spent $150 for it. Well, long story short, he took the coat, sent it off to wherever he sent it to. And about 3 weeks later, I get a FedEx package from the Port of LA. It was our samples. We already had a container on the water, or half a container, which was almost 10,000 coats, gentlemen.
Wow.
Sure enough, he pulled it off. I told him flat out, if you figure out how to do it for $25, I'll figure out how to sell them. That was kind of going to be the business model.
Right.
And the packing list showed me that I was going to buy it. We paid $12.95 for the coats. That's landed in LA. There was two rules. Number one, we couldn't sell them to any other retail establishment. So I couldn't compete against Nordstrom's. So I couldn't take them to Walmart or Target.
Right.
The second thing was we had to get it through customs. Well, that was my partner's whole business model. So he knew how to get it through customs, no problem. But we had that big problem. We had almost 10,000 coats on the water and we had to be able to sell them, and I couldn't go to a retail establishment, blow them off that way. So long story short, guys, I'll just tell you the flat out truth. Do you remember American Online?
Yep.
AOL?
Oh yeah.
We're all that age. Do you remember they used to send the CD-ROMs in the mail? It seemed like every day.
You've got mail.
Yeah, you got mail. Well, I got one of those discs in my mail and it fell on the ground and bounced around. I'm like, I'm going to sell these coats on this World Wide Web thing. Crazy times. I mean, at the time, they're the only people that knew how to code in this computer language called the World Wide Web, which was called HTML, was a bunch of 14-year-old kids. So I had to hire a bunch of 14-year-old kids to program for me. Had to get special releases so that they could work part-time from the governor, and then all kinds of crazy wild west. Trying to get merchant processing and actually take credit cards online. There was no gateways to speak of. There was this brand new company called VeriSign. And I had to cut the deal down in Vegas, and that's a different story, and I'll tell it at a different time. But guys, I'm just telling you, it was back then. The .com was a wild west. There was not even a Yahoo yet. So you know how old I am on this thing. There was no search engine optimization. There was nothing Google hadn't, I don't even know if the Google guys had been born yet, to be frank with you. Long story short, it was crazy. Ended up taking the second company to ever retail products on the World Wide Web public. Stock went from 12 cents a share to $14.95. It was the wild, wild west. Had a great time, kind of got into e-commerce in a big, big way. I understood how to negotiate with wholesale distributors and manufacturers. And at the time, we had to buy great big blocks of products and put them in warehouses and ship them out. And that's where I kind of got my start. Used to make fun of this guy named Jeff Bezos in the stupid little rinky-dink bookstore. Oh, it was crazy. Anyway, long story short, we went public. It was on the pink sheets. It was a little penny stock. It was trading at $14.95 a share. You're not supposed to be trading a penny stock at full dollars, let alone in the teens. It was crazy. Remember Earthlink?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
The competitor of AOL. I had 2 meetings back to back, and I'm just kind of telling you a little bit of my story so you know who I am.
No, it was
I had
great.
2 meetings back to back. One of them was Earthlink. They showed up with a cashier's check in hand, and they offered me $1.25 more than what we closed our little penny stock closed the day before. Dude, it was more zeros than I'd ever seen on a check. I looked at it and went, holy crap. Showed it to my import business partner, and we spun around like, it almost felt like Dumb and Dumber. We spun around in the chair, talked to ourselves, kind of like little kids. And they looked at it, and I said, can you hold that check for 24 hours? And they said, no, you got to take it or leave it. I said, well, then I'm going to have to leave it then.
Cool.
And the reason was I had a bunch of market makers coming in from Wall Street, Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers, and a couple guys from Goldman Sachs, and they were going to take me from the pink sheets, which is no man's land when it comes to the stock market, up to the mid-cap NASDAQ. Guys, I should have took the check. I went with the market makers, and they asked me to step up to the board, quit running my company for a host of reasons. They wanted to have a dog and pony show and get a bunch of guys from Wharton Business School and Harvard and Yale to come run their company. And nobody did anything criminal, but basically we got locked into a bunch of market makers, and we could get money very, very cheap. And we started spending more money than we made because we could get access to those monies. And they popped the bubble before the dot-com bubble even popped. Oh. I tell you that so you know a little bit of my background. I've been around the block a couple of times in e-commerce and understand it and kind of consulted in it from that point to now. And just really, really wanted to do something extraordinary. And when it popped, it was devastating to me for a host of reasons. Not so much because I lost money, but I hurt some people because opportunity went away for them. But I tell you that story so you know a couple things. Number one, I've been around the block. I know a thing or two about ups and downs in business. But more important than that, I know wholesale distribution and import, export, and manufacturing negotiations. And I'll tell you both, or all three of you, the industry's changed drastically. That little teeny bookstore I used to make fun of, became a 800-pound gorilla and became a marketplace, and they've changed the industry forever. Amazon is changed retail outlook forever and a day. There's 2 800-pound gorillas meaning behemoths in retail. Walmart's 1 and Amazon's 2. And we're gonna come in and come right behind Amazon. And once I started doing this here at Transact, I found out, holy hell, the entire world's changed under my feet, and Amazon just made it better for a guy like me. And what I mean by that is Amazon's made every manufacturer a drop shipper now. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Right.
But they all drop ship. And then going into the pandemic or whatever you guys want to call it.
Pandemic. Go ahead.
There you go. Amazon made a bold move and copied Walmart and said, okay, we're going to pay our manufacturers and our wholesale distribution 90 days after they ship the product to our client. So that change the landscape drastically. It allowed me to go in and say, hey, we're a banking institution with a very unique reward system, and we'll pay you up front. So we'll pay you before you send that pair of shoes or that driver or that box of balls. We'll pay you up front before you drop ship to our client, which is drastically different. And the speed of money for these manufacturers, it's huge. And that's allowed us to get a foothold in that space. And we'll launch here in November with over 20 million SKUs. And a year from now, so going into July next year, we'll have over 200 million SKUs, and we'll still be 100 million behind Amazon. But we've got a unique model where people are going to get a better value proposition than any other retail establishment they ever thought of. And we're a banking platform. We're not really retail, but that's where the Z-Buck and the whole thing that we're going to talk about, that's where the value proposition comes from, is me doing my work with wholesale distributors and manufacturers that are just, quite frankly, tired of those two 800-pound gorillas dictating to them, because that's the only outlet. That's where all the eyeballs are, those two big behemoths, and they've got to sell through them. And we hope to take a niche and change the world drastically on multiple fronts. So, guys, that's my story, and that's where I come from. Now we probably ought to go in and talk a little bit about what this card is and how it works.
Yeah, I just had two quick questions on that. One is, so people understand, I think they do, the reason they hold the money for 90 days is they can then utilize the money and make money off that money. Correct? I believe
that's 100%. The only reason they do that is that 90 days gives them, I don't know what they do, and I don't know their investment mechanisms, and I don't care, but they're using the manufacturer or the wholesale distributor's money for 90 days. Well, what does that mean for the manufacturer? Well, now they've got to go to banking institution, get loans against their receivables at those two great big gorillas, and it costs them money to float the money so that those two great big institutions can make some extra dough.
Right. Thanks for clarifying that. And then one other question is, we have a friend that, she runs an Amazon store, and, she distributes clothing and so is that something that someone could do through, is this going to be called Transact, or what's?
Yeah, it's called the Z Club. And if they've got a ranking on Amazon, we'll absolutely put them in. Right now, I'm working with some of the biggest name brand wholesale distribution companies, the ones that, TaylorMade, and the guys that do wholesale distribution for a little company like Wayfair. Those are the ones I'm working with. But if they want to come in and they've already got an Amazon rating, we'll onboard them into our system, and we pay up front. So we need the normal margins that any retail establishment gets, and that's where we get the valuation for the Z-Buck. We'll talk about that in a second. But if they wanted to come on and participate, we're not ready for it right now.
Right.
Let us get through our pre-launch into launch. Right. And then we'll take on applications and let people bring on and sell whatever they want to sell inside our Z Club.
Okay.
So you guys are definitely in preferred status, I imagine, with those retailers, because that 90 days is really painful for a lot of folks. If they got to fund another production run or get ready for the next big order, that's a real challenge for a lot of folks.
That's marvelous.
Or just simply making payroll. I mean, you think about every day the cash register rings 90 days down the till. It's kind of crazy, the float that's going to be out there on some of these big retailers like Amazon and Walmart.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've heard nightmare stories where they something will happen and it'll go longer than 90 days, and it really puts them in a bind. They do have to go get bridge loans. They do have to find ways to keep their company afloat because of this negotiation that they entered into. So
and one last thing on Amazon, I think I just heard something about they're changing their return policy, so it's not going to be just free to send it back anymore. So I don't know, just stuff that's come up. So, but let's go ahead.
It's kind of crazy what they're doing because, listen, so I've got this philosophy: money makes you only more of what you already are, and if you're a good person, money makes you a better good person. If you're a terrible person, money makes you more of a terrible person. I've heard terrible things about Amazon. I'm not judging the company and I'm not judging the founder, other than the little jab I made at the first of this. But I'll tell you this: there's no reason to hurt a manufacturer. And there's been literally hundreds of products sold on Amazon that actually caught fire, that Amazon just cut out and made their own knockoff and cut them out completely. Yep. The foam rubber things that massaged your back. I know the actual manufacturers and the guy that invented it, and they changed just enough of the things that he invented that they made their own and completely cut him off completely. So he had a multi-million-dollar business and selling through Amazon, and Amazon put it in Amazon Prime or Essentials and built their own foam rubber thing and cut him right out, or outpriced him right out of the market. Wow. Not a cool thing to do. If you're going to be a retailer, stay in retailer. Don't go into manufacturing. The manufacturers do the manufacturers. But you know what? Greed does weird things to people, and money to people that are not good magnifies them as well as money magnifying good people as well.
Thanks for bringing that up. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, that was one of the most painful aspects of COVID, was this consolidation of wealth. Really, everything was funneled to folks that were, retailer and manufacturer. I mean, everything just sort of went, all the little mom and pops just couldn't keep up with all the regulations, and all that money got funneled into the outfits they could. Very few of them.
Awful.
And more and more it's getting that way. There'll be one store, one manufacturer. Sounds a little I don't know, communist maybe.
Yeah.
Eventually.
A little bit scary for darn sure. And I don't know, the more they tighten their grip though, the more companies and individuals will find a way out. We hope we're one of those ways out. We service 3 major customers: the card member. Most banking institutions service Fortune 500 companies and governments. And what I mean by governments, I'm not just talking about countries. I'm talking about states and local principalities. That's who they really want to loan money to. Agencies that are backed up by taxpayer dollars, because it's a zero risk proposition for them to loan out money. Well, who's going to take care of the natural person, the person that's living, breathing? And I'm not talking about that fictional thing that gets thrown out when you have your driver's license. I'm talking about you, gentlemen. Who's the real live person and your real live living, breathing souls? Who's going to take care of you and your family? Well, if it's not a banking institution, it's not going to be able to do too much. So we put together TranzactCard. It's a fully secure FDIC banking platform that deals with and harnesses the power of the banking institution. We deal with the small, minority-owned, small little regional banks. They have the FDIC insurance, just like the big boys do, and they have the money transfer license, just like the big boys do, but they don't have the 2 things that the big banks have. That is access to the Fed window when their tier 1 capital gets small. So what that is tier 1 capital is the capital you need in reserve to be able to loan out everybody else's deposits. And when banks get low on tier 1 capital, there's very few places to go. But the big banks just go to the Fed window, knock on it, and say, "Hey, we're too big to fail. Give us some tier 1 capital." And that happened unbelievably in 2008. We all saw it firsthand. And then the second thing the big banks have is when they have loads of tier 1 capital, they need more clients so they can loan out more of their money. So they'll go to Madison Avenue and write a great big fat check and come up with some marketing campaign and bring on new clients, new depositories. And most small little banks don't have that ability to do either one of those things. And that's where TranzactCard is kind of a savior for the small, the medium, little banks, especially the minority ones. We bring the clients and tier one capital to the banking institution. So the first customer we serve, and we'll talk at the tail end of this about how we serve the real person, our card member, but we service the small and medium banks. We treat them like a commodity. We have all the thin tech piece that you need to be able to plug it into those banking institutions. And if they get in trouble, because there's been a lot of rumblings about, ooh, this bank's failing, we have the ability to unplug it and plug it into another bank, and we don't even need to change a routing number, which is unbelievable.
That is
so we only use those banks for two reasons: their money transfer license and their FDIC insurance. And FDIC is a very interesting beast. We all look at it as kind of the last insurance policy. What they really are is a negotiation between bank mergers. So if a bank's in trouble and FDIC needs to step in, what FDIC generally does is merge a bigger bank with the smaller bank, and they kind of broker a merger or acquisition. But there's so many of these smaller banks that don't want to participate in that. We don't want them to. Sometimes bigger isn't better, gentlemen. It's definitely true in our banking industry. We don't want just 2-3 banks servicing all of us. We want those small, little independent, thriving banks to stay thriving, and that's where we come in. And then last but not least, we service the retail establishment, the wholesale distribution that I talked about at first. If they get their money up front instead of have to wait for 90 days. So we're a win-win-win in 3 ways. The customer wins because they get a better value proposition with their debit card than they've ever imagined they could. And the manufacturers get a payday up front instead of 90 days down the track. And then these small banks get to participate with something like TranzactCard and bring on new clients in tier one capital and stay viable in the banking sector.
Well, this is so impressive. It sounds like, I mean, it's kind of the underpinnings are all to embrace the sovereignty of the individual rather than trying to sidestep it or minimize a person's agency. You're expanding it with this model, but functionally, it's just relatively the same workflow. I mean,
well, there's a lot of fear going on in society because of all the upheaval and the craziness that's happened with the elections and the craziness that's happened with our current president. Guys, let me just tell you what the philosophy of the white hats that I run around with. And I'm not going to tell you names, and it doesn't matter the names. Let's just put it this way. I know there's white hats out there in a big, big way that want to make sure that the population of the world is taken care of, and it's good versus evil. And I'm not going to go into too much of that, but I will tell you this, and this is very important for you to hear. Stop being afraid. The dark hats are the ones that want us all afraid. Kind of the Force. I mean, if you're a Star Wars fan, man, the fear and the anxiety and the dark side get their fingers into you. That's a bad thing. Love, peace, sound mind, goodness. That's all good. And yes, we can run around afraid. Oh my goodness, look at this happening, and look at the fires up in Canada. And we can talk until we're blue in the face about the bad. But let's embrace the good. Let's embrace the good. And here's what we're doing. And here's what this is about. And this is very important that I get this message out to everybody. Let's say the banking system crashes. The American people like to do business with each other, and they like to be fair. And we work hard. That's never going to go away. And no matter what we say about the dollar or any other currency on the planet, all it represents is our heart and soul and our work ethic. It's not going to go away. And there's a lot of white hats that are going to make sure it might get rocky for a week or two or a month or two even. But at the end of the day, goodness is going to take over and the darkness is going to go away. I'll give you a proving point. If we went into the darkest cave in Nova Scotia, and we piled the Rocky Mountains on top of us, you with me? Pretty dark space. Would you agree with that?
Oh,
yes.
It'd be terribly dark. We couldn't see our hand in front of our face. But if I struck one match, one match, the darkness goes away, doesn't it?
Yep,
sure does.
Light is always better than darkness. And guys, I'm just telling you right now, the white hats know that, the black hats know that, and let's just march forward with love and a sound mind and quit being so fear-based. That's exactly what the dark hats want, is you to be afraid. And that's the last thing you should be. Are we going to have some ups and downs in our economy? Yes. Is TranzactCard perfect? No. But it is fully FDIC insured, and it is a new form of banking that doubles people's dollars. Now let's blows. Oh my heavens! I took over the meeting. I'm so sorry.
No, I really appreciate that. We want this to be more than just about finance, and I do want to welcome the lovely Maria here, who's also a paisan, and I want to let people know that, or paisan, what do we say, paisana?
I think we were saying, I don't know if paisana is a word, but you know.
She's going to be part of our party, I think, in September, regardless. But what's behind her? So let's just tell people a little bit about what you do, what's behind you, why you got involved, and then we'll go back into more of what.
Yeah, so thanks for inviting me to be here. I appreciate that. I've interviewed with you guys before, and it was so fun. I'm glad we stayed connected. And I had to share Transact with you because I just knew your members, or your listeners had to hear about this because it's absolutely amazing. And this is not about me, and it's not about my business. I have an EE System Center here, and a lot of your listeners already know what that is. I'm part of the Freedom community. Transact was introduced to me by one of my very, very good, actually my first member that ever walked in the door here, who has become a very good friend of mine. His name's Harv. And Harv walked up the stairs to my center, first day I was open, first member, and he was wearing a Save the Children shirt. And so I, was like, oh, my people are coming. And so Harv and I got to know him and his family, his wife, his sisters would come in and kind of start getting to know them on a personal basis. And he started whispering about this TranzactCard thing, I want to say longer than that, probably 4 or 5 months ago. And I had so much on my mind, like trying to get my center marketed and I do everything. I don't have a partner, so I'm working on my stuff. And he's whispering in my ear here and there about TranzactCard. And I'm like, yeah, I'll listen, I promise. And of course I never did. Until Suzanne Smith, my very good friend, who was a client here as well. She walked in the door. We spoke on the phone. She came in the session. She bought the package. We became very good friends. I introduced her to Harv one day. They started chatting about TranzactCard. And she calls me one day and she goes, hey, are you going to do this TranzactCard thing? And I said, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to really look into it yet. She's like, well, you have the video, right? And I said, yeah. She goes, well, I said, how long is it? She says, 15 minutes. I'm like, okay. She goes, well, you need to look at it and you need to let me know if you're going to get involved, because if you are, then I want to sign with you because you introduced me to Harv, which I thought was super sweet. So I watched it or listened to it, and I said, I'll call you back as soon as I'm finished. Call her back. And I'm like, well, that's a no-brainer. So we both signed up for TranzactCard with Harv the very next day. And I'm all about freedom. Like even though I don't have a podcast yet, I feel like I'm part of the freedom community. That's why I connected with you guys and all of the people.
You are.
What's that?
I said, you're a big part of it.
Yes. So I attract those people here at my center, and we become friends, and we're all kind of like within that same movement. So I'm really big. I opened my center because I'm a big advocate of health freedom. because of my personal story and my son passing away after complications from his heart transplant. But when I learned about Transact, I was like, okay, this fits so incredibly well with what I'm already doing, because I'm all about medical freedom. This is about financial freedom. So medical freedom for the people along with financial freedom for the people. They just go together. And I saw it immediately. Nobody had to talk me into anything. I was so super excited to get involved with Transact. And then I got to meet Richard and his lovely wife, Susan. They've been to my center, and it just kind of, and this is after I actually fell in love with Transact. We met afterwards. I didn't know who they were before. But this has been just absolutely an amazing ride. I love it. I love the people. Like we were talking about earlier, you guys mentioned that, I think Richard was saying that, you know, there's good and bad in every group, right? Well, that's true within our community too. You know, it is what it is. We're dealing with human beings. What I have found though, is that for the most part, I would say 100% so far, I could get tricked somewhere along the line, but every single person that I've met in Transact, including the leaders, are true blue human beings. I don't put my faith in other human beings. I put my faith in God, but I will say so far, I have only seen good. Yes. Are people perfect? Is Transact perfect? Is EE system perfect? No. But this is where the rubber meets the road. When Richard and Peter or whoever, one of the leaders, make a mistake, we get an email with an apology. They immediately say, hey, we screwed up. We're sorry. And they fix it. That was huge for me, because so far, I mean, I've had situations where I've been promised the moon and the world, and, you know, and then somebody makes a mistake and they don't acknowledge it and they don't try to make it better. And that's where you start to lose faith. I haven't felt this with Transact at all. They're amazing people to work with, and the movement is huge. And in my personal opinion, I feel like this is going to take over Amazon in less than 3 to 5 years. That's my opinion.
Wow. We've seen such a decline in customer service, and you know, they wear you down. It's like you know, you might want to correct a $15 error or something like that, but it'll require 2 or 3 hours of your time.
It's not worth it.
You know, yeah, telling the same story to 8 different people, you know, that sort of seems by design these days. It's easier to walk away.
Yeah, let's frustrate the customer so
Always,
much
yeah.
that they just give up. Yeah.
Yeah, they just give up. Well, I'm not that kind of person. I don't give up.
You're
but at the same time, I know when something's working and when it's not.
Right.
And there's something divine behind this that I can't explain. Nothing's going to stop this. It's just huge. There was something. I had a question for Richard, if you don't mind. And you may have already answered this, Richard, but in our community of truthers, freedom community, whatever you want to call it, yes. When we utter the FDIC, sometimes we get this like, so can you kind of like maybe tell us how it is that we overcome that issue?
For one thing, we need to make sure we don't throw the baby out with the bath.
Okay.
There are certain things that have come into existence that have made our lives better. Currency in general is made a lot better than us transferring gold back and forth with each other. So our symbols and the things that we do and we build sometimes can be lumped into a bad bucket that's not a bad bucket. Yes, if the wrong people are driving FDIC insurance or the wrong group, listen, at the end of the day, the banking system needs to be trusted by the people. And the white hats are going to make sure that's is disrupted as little as it possibly can. And we've been assured that the FDIC insurance mechanism, so we can have confidence in our currency, whatever it may look like going down the path. And I'm going to leave it at that, if that's all right with you three. But as we move down the path, remember what I said back a few minutes ago. It's all about the people are honest and they like to work and they want to have a medium of exchange. The more we can not disrupt that, the better. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I've been told that some of these mechanisms, like the FDIC insurance, is going to be a part of us going forward down the path as we get more and more in a brighter day. So more than just that little match in the in the cave, the light's going to get pounded on this, and all darkness is going to be kicked out. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, you know, we're like 45 minutes in, and we haven't really told people what's so unique about the TranzactCard and why people are going to want to use this over some other means.
You guys got me so excited about talking about the overall culture of everything. I wanted to.
No, that's
the
great.
TranzactCard is the new evolution of banking. It's a debit card. It's not a credit vehicle. So it's a new type of bank. It's a new type of banking platform is what I really should say, because the banks are brick and mortar banks, small regional banks, minority owned, a lot of them, that we place your money in using our fintech, which is financial software, our fintech piece, to place you in that bank. So you're covered by FDIC insurance. You're on the Visa, MasterCard rails. You can present your card anywhere Visa's accepted, and it'll go through because it's a debit card. Now, we wanted to create a system where there's a value proposition for people to use that card, and that's what we call FinMo, financial momentum. And basically, for every dollar you spend in the outside world using this card, swiping, paying your light bill, paying your Wi-Fi, gassing up at the gas station, going to Costco, going out to eat, wherever you used your debit card, every dollar you spend, you get what we call a Z-Buck. A Z-Buck is our rewards. Those rewards can be redeemed inside our Z Club, which is our Prime or our Costco membership. It's our membership. It's $25 for the first year. It's $4.95 a month thereafter, or $47.50 a year. But here's the difference. Yes, you're buying a membership to our Z Club, which will have millions and millions of SKUs, but every time you use the TranzactCard, you earn a Z-Buck, and you can buy a pair of Lululemons from $120 down to $60, or a pair of Nikes, or all kinds of things. We're even going to have ammunition. So your 9mm rounds that you can shoot and ping, 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 you're going to be able to get for half price of what you can get for traditional retail or at a gun show. Why are we doing this? Because we can. We're not having to mark it up. The manufacturers are going to drop ship to you directly, and we're going to pay them up front. They love it, you love it, we love it.
Pretty cool.
And we create a system where people get a double their buying power, double their dollars. And that's what it's $25. We give you 500 Z-Bucks. We've already had so there's two ways to spend your Z-Bucks. One is dual spend. So you take a pair of Nike shoes that retail for $110, you buy them down $60 and spend $60 in cash. So half Z-Bucks, half cash. That's called dual spend. Then on a regular basis, and we've been doing it daily, pretty close to daily, we have what we call a flash sale. So we'll bring in, I got a cell phone right here that we're going to be selling next week. So we've got an LG cell phone, brand new, latest and greatest LG. It retails for $800. Your cash isn't good here though. It's Z-Bucks only. So first come, first serve, you'll get this cell phone for 800 Z-Bucks. Well, where'd you get the Z-Bucks from? Swiping your card. So we're going to do phones, computers, and these are all flash sales, first come, first serve. We're also going to do a cruise on a very, very regular basis, quarterly and eventually monthly. Now, what do you mean cruise? Well, I don't know if you gentlemen have ever been on a cruise before, but a cruise, the cheapest room is $650 per person, double occupancy, all the way up to $18,000 for a 7-day cruise. We're going to sell the entire boat for nothing but Z-Bucks. So you'll get on the boat for just Z-Bucks. Well, why are we doing that? Well, we want to have the best value proposition for this card. Because what I want to have happen is our digital branch offices, and we're not going to get too much into that. But that's the business opportunity where you can be the new face of banking. We're not going to get into it much more than that. But when people swipe the card, you get paid. When they earn Z-Bucks, you get paid. And what I want is you guys eventually to be in the grocery store and the lady across the street or a lady you knew sees you in the bread aisle. Instead of trying to sneak away because you're going to sell her something, she runs up and gives you a great big bear hug because for the first time in the history of her life, her and her significant other got to go on a cruise because they could afford it because they got to use nothing but Z-Bucks. Guys, that's what we're building here. It's a value proposition second to none. We're servicing three things: the banks, the wholesale manufacturers, and the card members. And by the way, the entire purpose is owned by Trust for the benefit of its members. So we created this entire business model. It's for profit, but the profits are always invested back in to the members' benefits. Why did we do it that way? Because we could and we wanted to. Listen, I'm 55 years old. I'm now doing exactly what I want to do. And I'm going to say this, and that forgive me on this Father's Day, but it's appropriate on Father's Days. There's 4 things in life that make it worth living. Number 1, intimacy, sexuality. Let's just put it that way. Fair enough? I'm not going to go any further on that one. The second thing, making money. People love to do it. We love it. You guys love it. I love it. We do it. We spend a lot of our life trying to make money. The third thing is spending money. We love to spend money. We love it. Women like it a little bit more than men, but we all love it. We love to spend money. The fourth thing, and it's mostly overlooked, the fourth great thing in life that makes it worth living is helping other people make money. And that's why we've created the digital branch. I could have went to influencers like LeBron James or Lady Gaga or Donald Trump or whoever and did this card because it pays out per Z-Buck earned. We've done that, but we're also going to allow digital branch offices to make some great money. And I'll come on down the track here a little bit later and explain the opportunity that's there, especially running with you guys. But at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're creating a new environment in the banking structure, in the banking arena. And we're going to do a flash sale with Maria here coming this next week. Why? Because I stepped foot into her facility with that crazy screen in her background, and it did something to me, gentlemen. I don't know if it's the precursor to MedVeds or what, but whatever was in that room that I spent an hour or so in did some amazing things to me. If you get access to them, you need to go and spend some time in those rooms. I don't know what it does to us. I don't know how it works. I haven't even got the first clue, but I can tell you this, changed my life. And I want to go back. It's almost like your favorite food. You got to go back to the room.
I was telling Richard we should have a Transact EE system room at the headquarters in Provo.
That would be wonderful. I probably just set up my office in it, to be honest with you. Guys, that's the big picture of what we are. It's Father's Day. We've been going for a little, almost 45, 50 minutes. I love this, and I could talk all day about the environment. There's good days ahead of us.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The truth movement's going to win.
Yep.
And the reason it's going to win is the divine whatever's out there that makes us all one wants light to come into this world, not the darkness that's been functioning for way too long. With that, I'm just going to let you ask another couple of questions, and I'm going to go spend Father's Day with my 7 sons.
Oh,
7.
man.
Wow.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's great.
Well, I think we've said pretty much everything we need to thus far, but Scott will have a last word. But I just want, Maria, where are you in Utah so people know where to go check out your amazing center?
Thanks for asking. So my center is in Lehi, Utah, and because I'm involved with TranzactCard and it is about the people, when you become a Transact member here at my center, you actually get a discount on your services here. So, you know, come check us out. And oh, I'll even go a step further. When you sign up to get a card with Transact, you get a free system. You get a free session for 2 hours. So you can actually experience this and share it with your friends and family.
That's awesome.
There we go. Anything you want to end on, Mr. Stone?
Well, any other remarks about the Transact card, Maria, before we
Bid farewell
wrap
for
up?
yeah.
No, I just love sharing it with everyone and anyone. And I've built a community of like-minded people here at my center that are into, you know, like I said, freedom, health freedom, and now also helping them to, I'm also doing what I've always wanted to do, which is help people heal. And now I'm helping people to earn money and become financially free. So I'm living my dream, really. I'm very thankful.
Well, it's I love what both of you are doing, and it's so great to be aligned with folks that are committed to making the world a better place. And I think it's a great opportunity. We're kind of taking the world back from a dark place, and and it takes a lot of people to do that. So, well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it, guys. And we'll put links below, and even a link to Maria's center so people know where to find it immediately. And but yeah, I think that's it for now. But thanks everybody for watching. We'll have a follow-up with Richard, and you know, we'll figure that out. But we really appreciate you, and we're trying to do our best to bring all kinds of different stories. So thank you guys so much, and we'll bid farewell. You guys hang out after just for 1 second. So take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.